Good morning. You ever had a week that you're not proud of? Yes. 3 of you, that's good. You had a week that you're not proud of? You know, things don't go the way you planned on it. Maybe you're just not patient enough with the kids. Maybe you weren't kind enough to your wife. Or you had a week where you just didn't get all the things done that you wanted to get done. And maybe you didn't mow the yard and it was really overgrown, and your wife had to ask you like 10 or 12 times to mow the yard before you finally got to it. And then you realized you had to preach on humility. Yeah. I don't know. Have you? No? Nobody? Nobody here. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So we're in the middle of a series on the book of Esther. And so if you have your Bibles with you, I'd welcome you to turn to Esther. We're going to be in chapter 6 this morning. And so if you're looking for Esther in the Bible, if you open your Bible directly in the middle, you should land in the book of Psalms, and then you're going to go backwards 2 books. The book before that's Job, then Esther. That's how you can find it, the quick and easy way. I know all of you are Bible scholars and know the exact page number of every book in your Bible, but I need the help sometimes. And so Esther chapter 6. Now, we're in the middle of this story on Esther. And a lot of stuff has happened, and if you feel like you're walking into the middle of a movie and you missed the first part, you can go back on our website and catch up on everything if you'd like to. But the main players that you need to be aware of is that there is a king, King Ahasuerus. There is a Queen Esther. Now, Queen Esther she was an orphan, and she was somewhat adopted by a cousin named Mordecai. And so Mordecai serves as kind of a father figure in her life. So you have King Ahasuerus, you have Queen Esther, and Mordecai. And then there's a bad guy, and his name is Haman. So Haman's the bad guy. And there's then this tension that's building. And for the purpose of where we're at today, what's happened up to this point is that Haman got promoted to be the second in command in all the country, and he wanted everybody to bow down to him. And so he would go around town, everywhere he'd go, people would be like, oh, it's Haman, the fanfare, and they would, bow. Everybody bowed except for Mordecai. Mordecai answered to a higher power, and so Mordecai thought, I don't really want to bow to this guy. And so Haman is upset that Mordecai won't bow down to him. And so he thinks, I'm going to get some revenge against Mordecai. But then he learns, why doesn't Mordecai want to bow? Well, Mordecai doesn't want to bow because in his faith, he wouldn't want to do that. As a Jew, he says, I answer to a higher power. So Haman says, well, if he thinks that way, I bet the rest of his people think that way. And so he works on, kind of through a course of manipulation, getting a decree issued, an irrevocable decree issued, that on such and such a day, they were going to kill all the Jewish people. People were getting pretty upset. People were kind of freaking out. I mean, imagine if your ethnicity was targeted to be wiped out. People would be really upset. I mean, even in our culture right now, there are people who feel that way. And there's riots in the streets right now. Whether founded or unfounded or whatnot, it is real because they're there and they feel this way. So it's not too hard to imagine that the unrest that maybe is going on in this country, in Esther's time, the Jewish people are freaking out. They're not sure what to do. The only hope that they have is Esther. Esther is the queen. She's on the inside. The thing is that nobody knows she's a Jew. She got all the way up the way she went, and just through the wisdom that we see in the previous section of this book, that there's no exposure of her nationality. So they don't know. And so Esther is working on this kind of path to help save her people. She realizes it's an uphill battle. She realizes that in one misstep, and she could be sentenced to death because of the way that their customs work, the way that the order and the hierarchy work. So now you've got this crazy situation. You've got a people group who are facing elimination on a certain day. You've got a king who is not quite fully aware of what's been done because it's a manipulative decree that's happened. You have a queen who is facing this extermination with her people. but the king doesn't even know it. I mean, this is straight like made for TV or movies, isn't it? I mean, the tension is just building, and what's going to happen, and Mordecai won't bow to Haman, and Haman's getting upset, so there's all this anger and this tension going on. And so Esther goes to the king and says, hey, if it pleases the king, will you come to dinner at my house? I'll have a banquet. I'll invite you and Haman, the number one and number two guys. I'll make dinner. And I mean, I'm assuming she's a good cook, or maybe she's having it made. I don't know. Some sort of banquet or feast. And so they're like, yeah, sweet. Let's go eat some food. And so they'd make this banquet, and they go, and the king says, well, what is your request? Like, why would you lay out this banquet? What do you want from me? What's your request? And she says, well, come back tomorrow. We'll do it again, and I'll tell you then. And that seems odd to our culture, but in their culture, that was actually kind of protocol. And so they're going to go back a second day, Haman and the king. Haman is feeling like, man, I'm on top of the world. I'm on the in. The queen likes me. The king likes me. He doesn't even know what's happening. And so this is where we're going to pick up in chapter 6, verse 1. And in chapter 6, verse 1, it says, on that night, on that night, the king could not sleep, and he gave orders to bring the book of memorable deeds, the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written how Mordecai had told about Bithana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the threshold and who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. You guys remember this? We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Mordecai discovered a plot on the king's life, exposed it, and the king's life was spared because of the actions that Mordecai took. And so here's the king. He's up late. He can't sleep. So what do you do when you can't sleep? Read a book? And you're going to pick what? A boring book? Or a book that maybe tempts you to fall asleep? And so he says, well, just read me, I don't know, the Chronicles. I mean, the Chronicles of what's happened. It's like the captain's log of what's been going on lately. And I mean, talk about a boring book. And so he's wanting to read this. Well, you know, he's the king, so I don't know what the story goes, but he goes and wakes somebody else up apparently and says, hey, you read it to me. You know, read me a bedtime story. And so the king is lying in bed, I'm assuming, hopefully wanting to go to sleep, and somebody's reading him the boring bedtime story, and he's laying in bed, and they get to the part where Mordecai, they read the story about Mordecai saving the king's life. And the king says, did we ever do anything to reward this guy? Did we ever do anything? So verse 3, it says, chapter 6, verse 3, it says, and the king said, what honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? The king's young men who attended him said, nothing has been done for him. Nothing has been done for him. This guy saved my life, and we didn't reward him at all? Whoa, well, what a shame. Man, we need to do something about that, right? And so the king hadn't honored Mordecai. And so the king thinks, maybe I ought to reward the guy who saved my life. So we continue on to verse 4, and it says, and the king says, who is in the court? Now Haman, who had entered the outer court of the king's palace to speak to the king about having Mordecai hanged on the gallows that he had prepared for him. Haman was ready to kill Mordecai. He specifically had a gallows built to kill Mordecai. Haman was going to kill him. So Haman comes first thing in the court, and he is amped up. Think about this. He's like fired up. He's like, I'm in with the king. I am in with the queen. We had dinner last night. It was fun. It was a big hit. I have influence. Now's the time to capitalize on my anger and towards Mordecai, and we're going to kill this guy. That's what we're going to do. We're going to kill this guy, and this is it. First thing in the morning, he's rip-raring, ready to go. He's like, I'm going to go wait in the king's court until I have the opportunity to go in and meet with the king, and I'm going to lay out, this is what we need to do. And so, meanwhile, the king, this is so great, the king is reading the Chronicles saying, oh man, what about Mordecai? We never honored Mordecai before. So Haman's rip-raring, like, we're going to kill Mordecai, and the king's in there, we need to reward Mordecai. Uh-oh, something is about to happen. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning. The fortress is open for business. Haman is first in line. He's excited. He's pumped up. He's ready to go. You know, Haman was a pretty proud guy. Think about it. Thousands of people will bow to him. But there's just this one guy that won't bow to him, and he gets all bent out of shape about it. He's got amazing position. He's the number 2 guy in this kingdom. He has more money, more influence, more power. He's probably got tons of kids. He's got a great family, a great wife who's supportive, even of his evil things. So he's got a great supportive wife, and he's got everything going for him in life. But this one guy, he just can't rest. Isn't that funny? I don't know about you, but sometimes I get stuck in that pride trap. I don't look at all the great things going on in my life, and I get so consumed with the handful of negative things in my life. I let those handful of negative things mess me up to the point where I can't even appreciate the good things in my life. Anybody else ever have that? You get so focused. It's like 5 of you, that's great. But you get so focused on the negative, right? You get so zoomed in that you get tunnel vision on the 2 negative things in life. I mean, this is it. This is classic. Tunnel vision, pride, arrogance. This one guy won't listen to me. The rest of the world listens to me. And he just gets so tunnel vision. He is freaking out, has this massive plot to kill an entire people group. Extremely proud. It says that they built a 75-foot pole to hang Mordecai on. Now, hanging back then was a little bit different. So back then, today, they put a rope and they tie, the noose, and they tie you around the neck and hang you. There, they would actually stick the pole through you and prop you up in the air. Yeah, and let you die that way. That would just be awful, right? So he's got a 75-foot pole that he's sharpened. So that thing is not skinny because it's 75 feet long. It's like telephone pole status. He's got like a whole tree or something. I mean, he's got something crazy huge, and he's going to impale this guy with. It's sick and twisted, but that's how they did it. So, so he's ready to stab a guy. He's trying to make a point. And so, sorry. And so in verse 5, we pick up, and the king's young men told him, hey, Haman's out in the court. He's standing there. And the king says, oh, let him come in. So Haman came in. And the king said to him, what should be done to the man whom the king wants to delight to honor? And Haman, wrapped up in his own pride and arrogance, says, said to himself, whom would the king delight to honor other than me? I'm the number 2 guy. If there's anybody he wants to honor, it's got to be me, right? Why would Haman think that? It's pride. His pride drove him to think that he was the most important person in the king's life. He heard that someone was going to be honored, and his natural assumption was that it would be him. It's pride. It says what he thought. Who would he honor besides me? It's pride. I am the greatest. I am the best. I am going to be honored. See, if Haman had been a humble man, his response would have been different. Even if he thought it was him. Oh, your majesty, the greatest honor is just to serve you. But no, that's actually not what he does. In his pride, he started suggesting a rather outlandish reward, assuming that it would be him. So we're going to go to verse 7. And so if the king wishes to honor someone, right? And Haman said to the king, for the man whom the king delights to honor, let royal robes be brought, which the king has worn, and a horse that the king has ridden, and on whose head a royal crown is set. Haman has come up with the ultimate prize for himself. The ultimate prize for himself. I'm going to wear one of the king's royal purple robes. I'm going to ride on one of his horses. I'm going to be paraded around the city. People are going to be excited to see me. I'm going to get my princess wave down as we're going to be trotting around the city, and I'm going to be smiling and waving, and people are going to be bowing except for that one guy, but we won't worry about him right now. This is going to be really, really, really great. I can't wait. He's so pumped. It's going to be awesome. Man, I am so cool. It's interesting that all through the book of Esther, we see the effects of pride. King Ahasuerus put on his pride at a feast that he made for nobles. Because his pride was hurt, he banished his previous queen to the ex-girlfriend house. The pride ended his marriage. It's funny, Haman's pride made him furious when Mordecai wouldn't bow. His pride led him to sin against innocent people, and now he is suggesting that he be the star of a one-man parade. Church, the stage is set. But you know, the stage that we're on may not be as big as the one for Ahasuerus and Esther and Haman. We may not be rich and powerful and prestigious like these people were, but our pride is just as much of a problem as theirs is. My pride's just a problem. It gets me in trouble sometimes. And I would dare to guess that maybe your pride gets you in trouble too sometimes. Pride is a problem for everyone. So just now, when I'm saying that pride is a problem for everyone, there may be somebody here this morning saying, well, pride's not really a problem for me, but that's pride. It's like declaring, I am very humble. No, well, oops, not anymore. You know, pride is considered to be a root sin. Pride is a root sin that manifests itself in a way. The fruit that comes off of pride looks different than the root of pride. So the root of pride delivers different kinds of fruit. In fact, if you're wondering, do I have struggle with pride? I found this great pride detector questions. And these are not my questions. I found these and I thought, man, these are so good and so accurate. So we're going to run through this together. Aren't you excited? Let's see if we got some pride. So let's go to question number 1. Do I crave attention, honor, recognition, reward, and get angry when I'm overlooked? But I deserve that promotion. Why did that guy get it? I'm so much better than him. It's question number 1. Is that self-righteous, indignant, how dare they attitude that creeps out. That's a piece of fruit that comes from a pride root. Why wasn't I recognized or promoted? Some people really stew when they feel slighted. Let's go to question number 2. Do I become jealous or critical of other people who succeed? This has been a hard one. This was a hard one for me that I had to really wrestle through in life. When I saw somebody else with a better car, maybe a nicer house, or I know they have a bigger paycheck, do I start to get jealous of them and think, man, I wish I had that. Like, why did they get that? Can you just be happy with what you have? I mean, this is the fruit that comes off of pride. One of the pettiest forms of pride is jealousy at the prosperity and success of others. You're upset because they got that stuff. You say, how did they get so lucky? They don't deserve that, but I do. It's pride. Number 3, do I always have to win? Now, I'm not talking like Monopoly, although you could be prideful in your Monopoly playing skills. I am. I always win. But, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, do you always have to win? Do you get into a disagreement with somebody? And even though halfway through the argument you realize they do have a valid point, but my point's kind of valid, I'm just going to push through and I'm going to win this. I'm going to dominate it. Have you guys ever, maybe you've never been on that side of it. You've been on the other side, right? We'll talk about the other people, right? The other side of that equation where they're coming at you like, no matter what you say, it's like they just won't give up. You're like, you know that you're right, and they know that they're wrong, but they're just going to keep going anyway. Do you always have to win? In today's day and age with political stuff right now on Facebook, People have a stance that they pick, and they promote the craziest stuff on their Facebook page, don't they? And you look at it, and like, it's a totally flawed logic. And I don't care if you're, what side of the aisle that you're on, or where you're at in the political mix. You look at the other side, and you always see that random crazy person, right? That's posting this astronomical things, and you're like, man, there's no way, that's not founded in reality, right? But you meet those people that, I hope none of you guys are the ones that post those things. No? None of us here, right? None of us here post the crazy. Our stuff all makes sense. But people post these things, right? And you know what? We're actually going to do this. This is in a couple weeks. We're going to actually talk about the election here at church. So the two things you're not supposed to talk about at a party is, politics and religion. So we're going to mix them together and have some fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so we're going to call it Election Infection. We're going to go for 2 weeks. So we have this week and next week on Esther, and then after that we're doing Election Infection for 2 weeks. And I don't care if you are a donkey or an elephant, you're going to have a good time. It's going to be funny, and just don't get your feelings hurt, because we're going to pick on everybody, and it'll be a blast. And so you want to come, bring some friends, people who are hot on politics, have them come, because it's going to be a great series. I'm really excited about doing it. So do you always have to win? If no one wants to play games with you or discuss things with you because you always have to win, it's pride. Always having to be the best or look the best, it's pride. Number 4, do I lack ambition for fear of failing? This is like kind of a false humility almost. Like, you know what I mean? You think, I'm going to try this thing out, but no, I'm not going to do it because I might fail. And if I fail, then I don't look good. And that's rooted in pride. Sometimes there's things that God's asking you to do that require some risk. And it takes a little bit of humility to say, I might fail at this. It takes a little bit of humility to say, I need to ask for some help. It takes a little bit of humility to say, I got to trust what God says. I got to trust that God is going to take care of me and my family. Do I lack ambition for fear of failing? That's actually the fruit of pride. Do I have a pattern of lying about or hiding failures? We've all met that guy that can't admit their mistakes. But have you ever found yourself in a place where you don't want to admit yours? The failed marriage is because of the other person. The failed grade is because the teacher. I lost my job because my boss is a jerk. This is messed up because of somebody else. But we all have failures in these things. It takes 2 people to lose a job, a boss and an employee. It takes 2 people to mess up a marriage. It takes 2 people to make a marriage work, too, by the way. It takes 2 people to make a lot of these things happen. Are you willing to own your side of it in the failures of your life? Or do you always blame the other person and say it's 100% their fault? Do you lie or hide your failures? Number 6 is, do I have a hard time fully acknowledging I was wrong? If it pains you to say you were right to someone, that's pride. When caught dead in your problem, you still won't admit that you're wrong. You find a way to justify it or excuse it. What is it that prevents us from saying that I was wrong? It's pride. Number 7, do I have a lot of conflict with other people? If you have a lot of conflict with other people, I would suggest that there's some pride. Some people always have at least one fight going. Have you ever met that person? I'm sure none of you are that person, right? But have you ever met that person that always has a fight going? There's always a conflict. It's rooted in pride. The constant fighting is the fruit of a pride root. They fight with their spouses or their family and their friends. They're the kind of person that brightens the room by leaving it. You know what I mean? You never see a fight break out between 2 humble people. No wars were ever started over a disagreement between being humble. Oh, no, you first. No, you first. No, you invade my country first. And then, no, you invade my country first. The wars don't start that way. Wars start out of a root of pride. What is there to fight about when you're humble? You're better than I am? No, you're better than I am. No, you're better. Number 8, do I feel superior to other people? See, nobody wants to admit this, so I will. I'll admit to this. Sometimes I feel superior to other people. Sometimes I go to the store or the mall, and I'm walking down the aisle, and I will look at another person as they're walking down the aisle, and I will say to myself in my head, I'm glad I'm not that person. As you all are sitting there saying the same thing about me right now. But this is real. Do you ever feel superior towards someone? If you do, that is rooted in pride. Oh, but I got facts and figures of why I'm superior to that person. You got reasons, right? But that feeling is still rooted in pride. I'm willing to get honest about my pride. Are you? I'm willing to get honest that I'm imperfect in these ways. Are you? The war internally between pride and humility is one that we will always wage. As soon as we start to believe that we are humble, pride starts to creep in. There's a balance. We're always trying to strive towards humility, but pride starts to creep in because we can't help it. It's like this sinful nature inside of us. We always have to keep turning this over to Jesus. God, help me with my pride. Help keep me humble. Pride ruins marriages. Pride ruins jobs. Pride ruins opportunities in business. Pride ruins promotions. Pride ruins things in life. Don't let your pride ruin things in your life. The fastest way to eliminate pride in your life is to admit it and own it and say, Dear God, I need help with this. And number 9, do I tend more toward an attitude of entitlement or thankfulness? Instead of being thankful for what you have, do you feel entitled? I deserve it. I earned it. I went to college. I got this degree. I make this job. Thus, I have this income and I buy this house and this sweet car. I've earned it. It's mine. I'm entitled. I've worked the extra hours. I've done the other things that the other people in the office wouldn't do. So I've earned this promotion. I'm entitled to it. It's mine. Entitlement versus thankfulness. Entitlement is pride. Thankfulness is humility. Because when you say, I'm thankful for my job, you're not saying it's mine. I've earned it. It's me. It's me, my. You're saying, I'm thankful for my job. I'm thankful to God for providing me good health to be able to earn a living for my family. I'm thankful to God for providing me with a brain that could study in school and earn a degree. God, I'm thankful that you put the right teachers and mentors into my life so that I could advance to the position that I'm at. When you're thankful, you end up deflecting the credit of any success that you have to God or even others. I'm thankful for this person, thankful for that person. I'm thankful for Yo for emceeing the service this morning. Does a fantastic, amazing job. I'm thankful for our worship team who put hours and hours of effort in to help lead our church into singing songs, worshiping Jesus. I'm thankful. This church doesn't function on me. This church is not my church. This church is our church. And I'm thankful for our church. I'm thankful for the people that are sitting here with us this morning. As you look around, as you come in and as you leave, and as you look around, be thankful for those that are around you. Haman was entitled. Haman says, I deserve to have people bowing down to me. Haman says, I deserve to ride on the king's horse. I deserve to wear the king's robe. Haman says, I deserve it. I earned it. I'm in this position. I have this title and this authority. Haman says that I have the king's man proclaiming my greatness. Here's the thing, is that Haman could not have seen what was about to be coming. He was so blinded by his pride, he could not see what was about to happen. What happened to Haman was completely opposite of what he had been plotting for. So as you pick up in verse 10, chapter 6, verse 10. Then the king said to Haman, hurry, take the robes and the horse, as you have said, and do so to Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Leave out nothing that you have mentioned. Man, I wish I could see the look on Haman's face in that moment. What? No. I didn't say the king's horse, did I? Oh, I didn't. So now here we are, Haman, escorting Mordecai on the king's horse, proclaiming the goodness, proclaiming how great Mordecai is. Haman building the monster stick that he's going to stab through this guy is now parading this guy, proclaiming his greatness. I'm talking like in a couple of hours' time, he went from the whole thing flipped around. You see, this is really cool about Esther is that God is actually not mentioned in the book of Esther once, but his fingerprints are through the whole thing. His fingerprints are through everything. The biblical principles, the godly principles are through this whole thing, and you see the whole thing pan out. Just because you don't see God working in your life so apparent and easy doesn't mean his fingerprints aren't on your life. Doesn't mean he's not actively working in your life. It doesn't mean that God's not there with you. Sometimes when you don't see God working, you need to follow what he has told you to do and keep after it. Stay faithful. And watch how God will turn the tables on your enemies. Watch how he will turn the tables on your enemies. Man. It's funny. Haman was so convinced that he was the man. So puffed up with pride. This must have been devastating to him. Haman's pride caused him to be humiliated. Have you ever been in that situation where your pride caused you to be absolutely humiliated? I've been there. My pride caused me to open my mouth and say some things that I shouldn't have said. Make some declarations or statements. Maybe even put myself in a position that caused some humiliation. I would share with you some of those stories, but I'm humiliated. There's no need for that. I assume you all have your own. Ever had that guy or gal at work that you think's an idiot? You judge them, you criticize them, you gossip about them, compare yourself to them, and it's all fueled by pride. And then when that idiot gets promoted above you, and now he's your boss. Oh, bummer. Because he knows that you think he's an idiot. And he knows what you've been saying and doing. It's the worst. Or maybe you've had that time when someone gave you some advice. Maybe they gave you some tips on things to do to improve your marriage, or maybe some things to do to help you in your workplace, or help you with raising some kids, or maybe even finding a spouse, or maybe there's some character issues that you had somebody maybe give you some advice on doing, but you just ignore it because like, I got this. And you blow them off, and you won't listen, and you go ahead and do it your way. And you fail miserably. You lose money, or maybe you lose time, or maybe you just lose face. You're proud, you overcommit, you make promises you can't possibly keep to impress people that you can't deliver to. Sometimes they're not even people you like, but you're still trying to impress them for some reason. Pride doesn't lead to humility. Pride leads to humiliation. Pride doesn't lead to humility. Pride leads to humiliation. If the band would come, I'm going to wrap up right now. Humility leads to honor and respect. So ironically, if you are struggling with pride, pride is trying to get the honor and respect that you're trying to earn that honor and respect with pride. But it leads to humiliation, and you actually lose the honor and respect that you were demanding of yourself. But when you're humble, your humility will actually get you honor and respect. So ironically, the opposite is true. The first shall be last, the last shall be first. And so when you pursue a life of humility, God raises you up and gives you honor and respect amongst those around you. But when you chase a life of pride, it leads to humiliation and you lose all those things. So if honor and respect are what you're looking for, humility is the path to get there. Pride leads to humiliation. And if we're honest, humiliation will lead us to humility. And humility will lead us back to honor and respect. And if we're not careful, that could connect us back to pride. So we must always stay grounded in humility. Some people wisely choose humility and skip the humiliation, but others, they never seem to learn. So they get to be humiliated privately and publicly, just like our buddy Haman. Imagine this scene in your mind. When Haman woke up that morning, he pictured Mordecai stripped naked and stuck to a giant pole and dying a slow, painful, agonizing, loud death. But here's how the day actually turned out. In verse 11, so Haman, he took the robes and the horse and he dressed Mordecai and led him through the square of the city, proclaiming before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." Then Mordecai returned to the king's gate. But Haman, he hurried to his house, mourning and with his head covered. He was dejected and completely humiliated. Imagine the conversation between Haman and Mordecai. So the king wants to honor you, and he sent me to do it. So here's this robe, and there's a horse. We'll climb on, because we're going to do this thing. And so he's now leading this. Imagine this awkward conversation now, because Mordecai knows that Haman hates him. He knows. Kind of proud of Mordecai. He could have rubbed it in. He could have been like, "That's what you get, sucker. That's right. I can't hear you. Say it louder. That guy over there didn't hear you. Speak up, son." You know, like he could have really rubbed it in. And man, it would have felt good to rub it in. But I'm proud of him for being humble. So in verse 13, Haman goes home, right? Embarrassed and ridiculed. And he says, and Haman told his wife, Zeresh, and all of his friends everything that had happened to him. Then his wise men and his wife, Zeresh, said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of the Jewish people, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him." Surely fall before him. Give it up, Haman. You've been humiliated and you need to quit. You need to let it go. You might be here this morning and you're facing your own crossroads of pride. You're facing your own decisions in front of you right now. What do I do with the boss that we're not getting along? What do I do with my spouse whom I seem to be fighting a lot with lately? What do I do with my kids that it's just this constant tension in my home? What do I do with my parents who just don't seem to understand? What do I do with all these different things, right? Well, how do I handle this? You're in this crossroads. What are you going to do? I urge you, I beg you, I implore. Choose the path of humility. Choose the path that's least traveled. Choose the narrow road. that might seem awkward and strange and maybe even unfamiliar territory to you. Choose the path of humility. Trust that God himself will defend you. Some people are so proud of their marriage. You'll risk losing your spouse, house, reputation, rather than swallow your pride and apologize. Some people are so proud of their kids, you're just stubborn and unyielding. They'll hold their ground, declaring that they're right, and lose their kids, rather than check that pride and find some common ground. Some people are so proud of their finances, their wealth, their self-sufficiency, as if commas in a bank account bring actual joy and security. They're proud of their appearance, their body, maybe their fitness or their health. Proud of their muscles and their trim waistline. Some are so proud of their possessions and their cars, their boats, diamonds, or houses. Whatever your pocket of pride is likely where you'll be humiliated. Wherever your pocket of pride is likely where you'll be humiliated. So people have two choices. Proud people have two choices. Humility or humiliation. And you really do have a choice. Proud people hold themselves up so high that when they fall, it's often a disaster. Humble people fall too. It's just a lot shorter of a fall. Unless people are looking at you.